Everyone knows that love is the only road.
This idea of karma. So, in the 60s and 70s, it became instant karma. That what you put out is going to come rushing back at you and smack you in the back of the head if you don't watch what you put out there. So that is, in a nutshell, what the law of circulation is, The law of the breath. You breathe in, but if you held the breath, what would happen? You'd pass out. And then you exhale and you expel all the stuff that you don't need, but the plants do. So you give your gift of breath back to the plant life, and they in turn reoxygenate the air for you. There are visible elements of the law of circulation everywhere. I sat and looked at the circulation of the ocean. The ocean is Mother Nature's circulatory system. And the warm currents come up and warm places that really need to be warmed. And they feed the krill, that feed the this, that feed the that. And it's such a beautiful sonata of movement. And that's what the earth is. It's all about this divine circulation of movement and water and air and life. We are divine elements of the law of circulation as we move back into the soil from which we came. There's a beautiful rhythm that goes on, and there's a spiritual law here too. The spiritual law of circulation says several things. It says, number one, that you have cause and effect. However, the path between them is one of a circle. And that it requires your forward movement in order to begin the law's action. If you stood in one place and did not breathe, the law of circulation as far as air would go would not work for you, right? However, until you fell over and then you'd start breathing again, because it's a part of what you do naturally. Well, we can hang on to things, and we can choke the hose and kink it so that nothing gets out. But we also find that it works the other way. It chokes us coming back in. So that if we restrict the outflow, we restrict the income. That's the law of circulation. Many of us mess with it all the time, don't you think? We get a little feeling of restriction going on, and we start pulling back where we would normally give of our money or our time or our affection. And what happens? Pretty soon you begin seeing, if you don't water the garden, it's going to dry up. And your money dries up, your relationships dry up, whatever it is that you've choked the hose for dries up. So the law of circulation says is you've got, tag, you're it. Tag, you are it. You got the first move. So because I was away on this weekend, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare this talk, so I thought, well, I could just go buy a hula hoop. So I did. I wanted the one that lit up, but I couldn't make it go around very well, so I think this is the perfect symbol of the law of circulation. Why, you might ask? Why? Thank you. Because you see, it's seamless. If this represents the law of circulation, there's no place where give becomes receive. It's all the same all the way around this whole circle. See, if you look at it this way, you've got the law of cause and effect. If you imagine, you can just see a straight line now. Law of cause and effect. But what the reality is that it's also this. So everything is circular. So what you put out comes back to you. It's always life. Everything about life works in circles. Ernest Holmes says that, circles that keep folding back upon themselves. So that every time you go around the circle in a certain instance, you come back to the same place that you started, just a little bit wiser, a little bit keener for your own life. Now, financial abundance works the same way. I think that many of us here have gone from a place where we came in here and we tipped for the service, you know. Who knew? Who knew? You know, you go to a restaurant, you leave a tip. But as we've learned over the years that from then we begin actually giving in like value for what we receive here. And what has happened? Has anybody noticed that your financial life has gotten richer when you've done that? Don't be afraid. Let's just see a little finger here and there. I see a few nods, a few fingers. It's true. Because tag, you're it. And when you start giving out of your own flow into that where you find nourishment. And if you didn't find it here, you would not be here. So I'm good about that. I'm confident that you do find some spiritual nourishment here. So the more you give, the more you receive, because it's all about flow. You get to decide whether you're sipping through a straw or a viaduct, you know? So it's all about flow, and we are the gatekeepers for it. We talked about, 2 weeks ago, we talked about there being 3 ideas around abundance for us this October. The first one was the law of unity. That God is everywhere present. That source is everywhere present. That the eternal, infinite supply of everything you could possibly want or need is right where you are. Why? Because God is everywhere. God is all there is. So right where you are is all possibility, all source, the givingness itself, the magnificent giver itself. So that's kind of how we're being. That's who we be when we're talking about abundance. Then the second part is about what do we do with our beliefs, because the law of cause and effect is always in action with us. No matter what we do, there will be an appropriate response to it. So we learn very carefully how to think and how to act, how to behave, so that we draw back to us what it is that we really want. Not that which is just going to come from the cloud of human thinking. That's kind of a murky place, that cloud. Much better to begin your own mental atmosphere. Of what I put into the law as cause comes back to me in a mirrored effect. So the third one, the law of circulation, is about what habits do we have? What are our habits around money? And one of the things that Karen Russo makes sure we think about is to be grateful, to bless everything. Bless everything that comes into life and bless everything that goes out. Because what you're doing is that you're calling it good. And when you call it good no matter what, guess what? Even the not so good stuff starts to get better. That's what the law of circulation is all about. So did any of you do your homework? The homework was to dream a really, really big dream for yourself. To dream a bigger dream for yourself in your life. Anybody think about it? It's interesting to go there, isn't it? It's like what crops up is, no, are you kidding me? That would be too dangerous, or I would be too exposed, or what if this, what if that? But that's all a part of saying yes to the universe that says yes to you. You got to give the first yes. You got to give the first yes. And it can happen anywhere along here, because there's no place where yes meets no. It's all yes. Makes sense? Anybody want to share their dream with us? Carla does, and just for that you get to use the hula hoop. I'm kidding.
I tried hula hooping a couple of years ago. It just didn't work. So, some of y'all know this because you've been in my home, but I rehabbed my house 10 years ago. It was a HUD house, so I rehabbed it top, bottom, inside, and out. And next door, a couple has bought a house, and they're rehabbing it. So it's got me in the zone that I want to rehab a house with no money. that's what I'm putting out there, is I want to rehab another house. So that's my goal.
So now then, just take back that with no money part,
Okay, correct.
okay? Because
God is my source.
that's right.
God is my source.
That's right.
And I don't know how it's going to happen, but I'm going to rehab another house.
Oh, yay, she cries. It will. Oh, I'll be looking forward to an update on that. Anybody else want to share your bigger dream? Oh, yes. Yeah.
Well, this is just kind of a metaphor for how my life is working right now.
Hold it a little bit closer.
So I woke up one morning and I thought, well, what would be my impossible thought for today? Well, this is very physical because I saw on a website this dining room chair and table that I wanted. But I didn't really think that it was possible. And so I kept seeing this dining room table and chair. They were little cartoon characters that had happy feet and this little smiley face, and they were just marching to my house. And there were 45 or 50 people bidding on this. And I thought, well, I could just still see them marching. And the whole thing ended, and it says, you are the current winner. And I'm thinking, yes, that's not just the table and chairs. It's my life. That I am the current high bidder right now. So it was just the image of this, whatever it was that was coming to me, was this happy little cartoon character. So I'm just going to make my whole life a cartoon now.
Who's the high bidder on your life? It should be you, right? So this whole, the whole idea of prosperous living is about dreaming a bigger dream, opening yourself to receive. How many have trouble receiving? Oh, yeah, it's easier to give. It's really easier to give than it is to receive. And you know what? If you find that cropping up in your life in small ways, you will find it in large ways. The small ways, like not letting people help you, and will show up in the big ways of money issues, lack of help when you need it, those kinds of things. So what we're all about is retraining ourselves to be in greater flow with the source flow. And as we use it, as we monitor our thinking, and as we change our thoughts to tune them up, we give the universe a yes. And that's what begins the law of circulation. How many of you know this from experience? Yeah. And then you watch your life. You watch your life and see what shows up. And inevitably, it's in bigger and better ways. More and more wonderful ways. So as I was on the plane last night, I was thinking about, okay, so what do you do with a hula hoop? You know, you got a gimmick here. So when you think about a hula hoop, I was thinking, well, how can that tie into giving, you know? What do you think, Wendy? How does that tie into giving for you?
What goes around comes around.
Yeah. And you heard Edwene talk about tithing and how critical tithing was to her life. And I started thinking, you know, tithing, if this is the symbol for prosperity and the law of circulation, then tithing is the action that keeps the hula hoop going around. Now you notice, if you've ever tried, who's tried a hula hoop before? Yeah. And for most of us, it just like falls down. And for most of us, when we start tithing, it just falls down. And sometimes this goes on and on and on because we think, oh, this doesn't work for me. It is about muscle. It's about creating the exact right spin around your waist. Tithing does the same thing financially, abundance-wise. It gives the right spin on your giving so that then it becomes self-propelling. I think that's a wonderful and apt analogy for it. So, you know that in the new science, they say that everything is spinning. Everything is spinning. So there's another thing, everything's circular. So let's see if it works. I do tithe, but I am gula. So my theory is then that for tithing, that if you get to 10% of giving, then your finances come into a kind of a happy stasis. Would anyone else say that that's how tithing's been for you? Yeah, that's how it works. So in theory then, this is what it's supposed to look like. So that's my demonstration for today. Next week, I hope you'll come back and hear Reverend Mark Anthony Lord. He's wonderful. He will tickle you. I'm going to be in Santa Barbara for a meeting. So let's just go into prayer now as we take in this third gem in the crown of prosperous living. This idea of circulating our good. And so I turn to that great giver, that beloved space inside that is it's becoming so much of who I am. I recognize every day how much Spirit is alive and working in my life today. And what I know about Spirit is that it's good, that it's giving, that it's loving, that it's powerful, that it is love. Most of all, it is love. And then I just open up myself to it, and remembering that means me, that right where I am is the love and the power and the presence of the Almighty. Right where each person everywhere is the reservoir of all there is. So I just set this in my mind and my heart and my intention, knowing that even though the facts of the world pull me off from moments to moment during the day, I consciously say, you may be fact, but you are not truth. And I turn back to the greater truth, that each of us are built from love, from flow, from energy, from joy, from abundance, from order, from harmony, from life. And I bless it. I bless this life. I bless it everywhere I see today. In every person's eyes, I see light and life. I see it in the people passing by me on the street. I remember it in the people who are in war-torn Syria and other nations, knowing that right where each of them is the peace and presence of God. And as I know it for them, I bring a little bit more light into the world, a little more life, a little more abundance, just simply by being the emissary of the one. So I claim that for each person hearing my voice, that each of us knows, for every person that we know, and that every person that they know knows the truth about the entire species, the entire planet, that all is well. All is well. And I'm so grateful. Now just take a moment and speak your own prayers into the room.
You pray for me and watch God change things. The secret of life is enjoying the passage of time.